So I've gone through kind of an interesting progression of poker knowledge growth in the past 5-10 years, where I was around before the advent of poker solvers, which are a huge, I guess, milestone in poker theory and poker education. So, there were software tools, but they were an entirely different thing. There were software tools that you could look at the stats, your own stats, how you play, how your opponents play. You can run kind of equity calculations, this hand against this hand, or this hand against this range of hands. Those things progressed. Push, fold, like math charts for MTTs and sit and goes, where I have 12 big blinds, my opponent min raised, I think he has these hands, I plug them in manually. What hand should I shove with if I assume that he's going to fold this, this, and this, and call with this, this, and this, and then here's all the math, it spits it out. There were things like that over the years, and they've all progressed over the years. But solvers are something different, because what solvers do, are run brute force simulations and find actual unbeatable strategy for poker. So they can tell you the right answer effectively. And before solvers, we never really knew what the right answer was in any given spot. It was your opinion, my opinion. We backed up our opinions with logic, of course. And oftentimes you could figure out who was more likely to be right, or you could get to pretty good decisions. But until things were proven in the way that solvers prove them, it's a different ballgame. And so I was, at the time that solvers came around, they started in No Limit Hold'em, and I was primarily a pot limit home hop player. So I wasn't using them because there were no PLO solvers at that point. And I played a little bit of Hold'em, like in World Series of Poker tournaments or here and there, and whatever came up. And I noticed, people playing a little bit differently, and I was kind of trying to guess what they were doing. I was still watching training videos of people who studied with solvers. And so, learned a lot of the buzzwords, the things that they were thinking about. But I never studied them myself. And actually, in the years following that, PLO solvers came out. I still didn't use them for many reasons. But it was a little intimidating. They're not the most they're not the most user friendly things, at least a lot of the ones that come out. And this was the early stages. I just didn't use them. And I still felt confident that I could play and win at PLO, and I still was playing and winning at PLO. But then I kind of started playing a lot less because I already had a business I was running, launched another business, and for a couple of years or a few years was essentially full time doing that. So I wasn't even playing. So certainly not studying with solvers. And this is as PLO solvers were progressing and people were understanding more and more. And it was during this time, and even a little bit before this time, like even when No Limit solvers were out, that I was still making training videos, because I have done that for a decade and a half. And I noticed I was very, I feel insecure is a little bit strong, but it's the word I can think of. So a little bit insecure about the fact that, I had my opinions for the way that I should play certain hands, and I was able to, guess what my opponents were doing and try to figure it out and try to figure out the counter strategy. But someone could just say, oh, actually, Phil, you're wrong. There's an answer to this play, and the play is supposed to be this. And I wasn't studying those things. So it was a weird time where I was actually, and this might be part of the reason that I was playing less and less poker and focusing more and more on the business. I feel like I got disillusioned a little bit because I thought poker was kind of turning into a game of right and wrong answers, and therefore, the skill set that makes you good at poker shifting from some hard work and preparation combined with an aptitude for understanding opponents and analyzing situations quickly, complex situations quickly, shifting from that to kind of who can study the hardest, who can memorize the most. And I was never that in school. I was a mediocre student because I had really poor study habits, essentially. I didn't study. And so this, I was getting disillusioned with poker. I thought, and I think kind of public sentiment was, the people who study with solvers the most are going to be the best players, and there is a right or wrong play. And it was a bit later that I decided to initiate the Galfond challenge and get back into poker in kind of a bigger way and play against some very tough competition. And I was definitely I was definitely nervous to do this, and actually didn't make that decision until what I'm about to talk about, which preceded this. So I work with a mindset coach and hypnotherapist named Elliot Rowe. He's phenomenal. If you want personal coaching with him, he's extraordinarily expensive. But he does release course material and hypnotherapy MP3s and things like that, things that are more accessible. Anyways, he helped me unpack this fear that I had about studying solvers, which is effectively, it's effectively like I was a top poker player for a while. What if I try again, study with solvers, and I can't be again, and I just can't be that good because I don't think my skill sets lend themselves to succeeding in this new era. And this goes back to what he explained is kind of a typical, he calls them mental programs. So detrimental mental programs that he uses the analogy of like your mind and body or whatever is an operating system. And early in your life, these programs get installed to protect you from something at that point. But we still have them 20, 30 years later, and they're not serving us anymore. They're actually harming us. So this one is called the too smart to fail. No, too smart to try program, which essentially, I was in grade school. I was learning things ahead of a lot of my peers. I didn't have to try. I would just get straight A's. It was all very easy. And, I never developed study habits. And now, and I get, my parents, my peers, my friends' parents telling me how smart I was. Now, in, middle school, high school, things start to get a little bit harder, and you can't quite ace everything without trying. Some people can maybe. But I was doing, I was like a B student instead of an A student without trying at all. And what happens is, or what happened to me, I guess I should speak to, is, it's this situation of, oh, well, what I've learned about myself, the truth that I know about myself is I'm really smart. And if I were to try hard and still not be as good as, still not do as well in school as some of my peers, I would find out that I'm not as smart as I think I am. And so I kind of protect my ego by not trying. And my identity and what I know about myself is I'm really talented, but I'm just don't try that hard. So that's why I'm not doing great. If I did try really hard, I would do fantastic. I'd probably be like better than everybody, but I'm just not. And so, I carried that with me. That's kind of how I was as a teenager. It's how I was throughout a lot of my poker career. Actually, I tried harder in poker because it was natural to. I wanted to. It was fun and exciting. But I still didn't study as much as my peers. And certainly now that solvers came out, kind of had the transition from grade school to middle school and high school all over again, where now, okay, I was great. Now there are people who are definitely better than me. A lot of people who are better than me because they've studied with these tools. And frankly, I was afraid that if I tried to study with those tools as well and compete with them, I would fail. And then I would find out that I'm not as smart as I think I am. And so anyways, Elliot helped me work through that and kind of recognize that, it wouldn't be so bad if I tried and failed, and that I wouldn't really try and fail. I would try and be less successful than I hoped I would be, but it would still be a better situation than I was in now, just avoiding it. And so then I tried. And so I learned from solvers. I played these challenges. I had success. And what was really interesting to me, and like the big kind of learning and really exciting thing for me, is that the skills that were useful pre-solvers are still the skills that are useful in the post-solver era, because the game tree is massive, is way too big for any human to study with solvers, even if they have a great memory, which I don't, to study with solvers and memorize how to play in enough spots that it actually matters at all. I shouldn't say at all, but that it actually matters, that they become close to unbeatable. Everybody is beatable, myself included, by a huge amount. We all make mistakes all the time, theoretical mistakes, but also mistakes, like we make theoretical mistakes. Some are more costly than others. And then we make mistakes that are, how do I put it? Well, we make ourselves exploitable by massively overfolding in one spot and overcalling in another and overbluffing in one, underbluffing in another, because too often we find ourselves in these nodes of the game tree that are on a board that is unusual, and the betting action's been unusual. It's not like something we've studied and we just can't figure it out in time. It's, we have 30 seconds to make a decision, and we make the best decision we can. And some of the spots are too hard, essentially. And so what I realized as I played my challenges and since then, is that I think even amongst great players, there's a misconception, the misconception that I used to have, maybe not as extreme, but the misconception that playing as close as you can to theoretically optimal poker is the way to be unbeatable, the way to be successful, etc. I think that a lot of players are trying so hard to emulate a solver strategy without understanding fully why the solver is making the plays that it makes. And as such, they're trying to play the game based on memorization. And there are a lot of tools that are great for this, that can drill you over and over again until you get your instincts are better at what's theoretically correct in one spot or another. But like I said, the game tree is so big that you're never gonna capture, or you're never gonna perfect all of the spots. So I think there's the misconception that, the way to get better is to get as close as you can to optimal. And there's not enough attention sometimes on making reads and finding holes in your opponent's games, taking advantage of them in a way that is exploitable. You deviate intentionally from optimal strategy, because that deviation is the counter strategy, the correct counter strategy to what your opponents are doing. And I think that the funny thing is, for a long time, like when solvers came out, it was the people who were not using solvers that didn't really get it, that were missing out on this extremely valuable tool that could further their understanding of the game so much. But I think now that solvers are so prevalent, you hear a lot of people talking strategy and teaching strategy and analyzing hands and breaking them down as, oh, well, this is wrong because look, this is what it says. And they're just leaving it at that. And I think they're wrong. I think that to do that is to really limit your ability to play, and also like further, making the correct play on the river that a solver would make with a specific hand. It doesn't really, it's not actually accurate that is right if the range that you got there with is not perfect. If you get there with a different range than the solver got there, which you're going to because you're human, it's not necessarily correct that the solver play is the correct play on the river. And so I feel really strongly that there's going to be, I don't know, I don't feel this strongly, but I feel like there's going to be a kind of a collective, almost like stepping back not from studying solvers, but from the way that we study solvers, or the way I see a lot of people study solvers, the idea of just getting the right answer in all these spots and moving on, leaving it at that. Because I think there's so much more to it. And I see so many people who will, like, post a hand somewhere or share a hand with friends. Okay, what's the play? We look it up. Okay, my play was good. Or, okay, my play wasn't good. Or, you know what, my play was not what the solver would do, but it lost like, 0.01 big blinds in EV, so it's fine. So in some of these cases, they're right that their plays are good, but I think that people will realize what I believe to be the case, which is that the way that we thought about hands 10 years ago, that type of thinking still applies in the post-solver era and is still really important in the post-solver era. It's just that now we have this tool that gives us so much more information to use that logic and use that train of thought and thinking process with.